Looking out onto the black abyss of space, Artemis II astronauts are woken by mission control with sounds from Earth.
We were all eagerly awaiting the chorus.
We'll try again next time.
The 3 Americans and 1 Canadian on the Orion capsule are past the halfway point on their journey to the far side of the Moon. They're the first to leave Earth's orbit since the 1972 Apollo program.
Yesterday we were looking out the docking hatch, which is off the camera to the top side, and we were just starting to see the moon, and it just looked different, and we were catching glimpses of the far side, the side that you can never see from Earth, of Grimaldi, of Orion. We were just starting to see around Grimaldi into that far. And as 4 humans who have looked at the moon our entire lives, it just looked different out the window, and that is wild. It just really put our place in the universe in perspective.
As they slingshot around the moon, their task is essentially to test systems for future missions aimed at establishing a lunar base. Images beamed from the capsule show the Earth shrinking behind them as they shot away at speeds up to 40,000 kilometers per hour. The mission is not without its trials, however. Astronauts have been told to use special urine bags after the toilet on board broke for the 2nd time.
EMERCOM checkout.
It's a little bit of camping in space already, but then it makes the camping a little bit tougher when you don't have the full capability of the toilet. But, you know, they're okay, and they're trained to manage through the situation.
Matthew Dunn.
They're expected to splash down back to Earth late next week, ending the first manned phase in NASA's plan to land astronauts on the moon by 2028. Freddie Akar, Al Jazeera.
Well, Lisa Campbell is the president of the Canadian Space Agency, and she joins us now live from the agency's headquarters in Montreal. Lisa, thanks so much for being with us here on Al Jazeera. Let me ask you first how momentous this mission is for Canada, especially since Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen is part of the Artemis II mission. How proud are you, and what have you been hearing from Jeremy?
Good evening, Mohammed. We had a chance to chat with Jeremy last night, and just later tonight, we're going to have another 20-minute chat with him where I'll answer questions from students across Canada. We are thrilled. This is the furthest a Canadian has ever been from Earth, and they're about to see the far side of the moon, which humans have never set eyes on. And we're going to learn so much more about an important part of the moon for establishing a base. We think there's water ice on the far side of the moon, where we can use water to drink, oxygen to breathe, and hydrogen for fuel.
Lisa, this team is the first to leave Earth's orbit since 1972. Why is this mission so important, and how difficult is it to pull something like this off? I ask because there may be those who think that because of the accomplishments of the Apollo missions that getting to the moon is no big deal, and that's just not the case, right?
Exactly. This mission is the first crewed mission to test all of the systems to go into deep space. And so what you're seeing is they're testing the spacecraft, communications, for an eventual permanent human presence on the moon. Canada, with countries around the world, is aiming now for the lunar surface. Just as we've done with the International Space Station for the last 25 years, we've had a continuous human presence. We're now going to do that on the moon.
Lisa, I know you talked a little bit about this before, but the crew, they're past the halfway point on their journey to the far side of the moon. And as I understand it, the difference between this mission and other missions when it comes to the far side of the moon is that this crew will be able to see the far side of the moon. Human eyes will be able to look at it, that it will be lit. Why is that so important?
Exactly, Mohammed. They've had extensive geology training, and they will be identifying areas of interest. There are several areas of interest that we're going to want to go and explore. So they're being supported by a science team on the ground and their own training to identify those areas of interest, things that we want to go and look at further that will help when we establish that permanent presence on the surface of the moon.
And Lisa, now that the crew is more than halfway through their journey, how crucial is the next part of the journey? What will we be expecting the next few days?
Well, tomorrow, we're on the 4th day of the mission. Tomorrow, they're going to enter the lunar sphere of influence, where the moon is going to pull them a little more than the Earth is pulling them. They'll go to the far side of the moon, where for about 5 hours, they'll be able to observe the surface of the far side of the moon and take observations, make notes, take photographs. They'll also see a solar eclipse when the moon slides right in front of the sun. And for a little while, they'll be without communications, the Deep Space Network for about 40 minutes or so, they'll be without communications. But then when they come back around the far side of the moon, they'll be making their way home and we'll reestablish communications with them.
Lisa, I just want to ask you for a moment about how symbolic these missions are for people down here on Earth. Let me hark back to another mission, Christmas Eve, 1968. The Apollo 8 crew, Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, Bill Anders, they became the first humans to orbit the moon. They broadcast a message of hope to Earth at a time of great strife, when things were not looking so good. Well, right now, we're at a time of so many conflicts, so much polarization going on Earth. What's the reaction you're seeing from people who are watching this mission with great interest? And do you think that this can be a unifying moment for a world that really needs some more hope?
Thank you. What a great question, Mohammed. And you're quite right. Space has a unique ability to inspire and, quite frankly, engage people around the world. As the crew have said, they look back on Earth and saw one fragile planet that we all share and need to take care of. Space also represents when you bring people and talent together, you can accomplish extraordinary things. And that's what we're doing with this mission. So our hope for this mission is that it demonstrates to everyone what we can do when we set our minds to it. Canada's building a lunar utility vehicle to help with surface logistics and support astronauts on the moon. Space in Canada generates over $3 billion in revenues and supports 26,000 jobs. So there's a whole lunar economy opening up with opportunity for everyone.
All right, Lisa Campbell, President of the Canadian Space Agency, thank you.